So, we were all set to start wrapping up this series about The Nightmare Before Christmas, but then I found myself going down a seriously strange rabbit hole. Shout out to this viewer for putting me on the path. And now I just have to tell you about the weirdest thing I've watched all year. A surreal, raunchy musical fever dream that shares an unsettling amount of DNA with Nightmare, but is most definitely not a holiday family classic. Welcome back to a bonus episode of This Is Halloween, a deep dive into Henry Selick and Tim Burton's animated masterpiece, The Nightmare Before Christmas. We're almost at the end of the series, but I couldn't pass on the opportunity to talk about this once I learned more about it. Today we're covering a 1980 release called Forbidden Zone, a relic of the late 70s transgressive art and theatre scene, a figurative and literal shitstorm of artifice, excess, and bad taste that, believe it or not, links directly to our main topic. My goal with this video is really just to shine a light on something truly unusual, released over a decade prior to Nightmare, and to consider how and how much we can see its influence. This film didn't involve Tim Burton or Henry Selick, but it's a pivotal piece of Danny Elfman's timeline, and I think it provides a real insight into his creative mind and career. Before we get into it though, content warning. This movie features some insensitive and downright offensive stuff, which we're going to talk about, but I'm going to try and limit the amount I actually show on screen.
Oi, weh, der jüdische Charleston,
So what is Forbidden Zone? Forbidden Zone is an absurdist experimental musical comedy featuring drag and burlesque elements, shot mostly in 1977 and 78, released in 1980. Its loose plot follows various dysfunctional members of the Hercules family, along with identical twins Squeeze-It and Renee Henderson, traveling to the mysterious sixth dimension through a portal under their house. The sixth dimension is home to King Fausto and Queen Doris, who seem to be happily and passionately married until the king falls in love with Susan, aka Frenchie. Whilst attempting to rescue Frenchie, Flash and Gramps Hercules discover the imprisoned Viva, the former queen who was usurped by Doris. Squeeze-It also mounts a rescue attempt and ends up getting captured by the Devil, played by Danny Elfman. More on that later. The whole thing is totally bonkers, drawing from years of on-stage skits and characters and mashing them up into this psychedelic, new wave, low-budget soup. And when I tell you it's transgressive, I mean it. By today's standards, but even by 80s standards, it crosses some lines. It features a considerable amount of nudity, humping, groping, F-slurs, blackface, a frogman fucking a princess, and quite a lot of scat humor, which includes the fact that the passageway characters use to reach the sixth dimension deposits them out of a giant butt, along with a few long brown pillows. Its cartoonish approach to sex is deliberate and intended to provoke a reaction, and throughout the film it delights in distorting the sexual presentation of its characters. This is a raunchy midnight movie with elements guaranteed to offend most viewers, but it's also an example of a genuinely unique countercultural relic that fans of fringe and outsider cinema will want to see. It premiered in 1980 to a mixed response, then spent a couple of years in late-night screenings at various small theaters before being lost to the public for over 20 years. Nowadays you can pick it up on DVD and Blu-ray, and it can be viewed both in its original black and white, as well as a colorized version. For fans of Danny Elfman and the band Oingo Boingo, this film serves as a kind of transitional benchmark between two major eras. The film was directed by Richard Elfman, Danny's older brother, and stars many of the regular performers they had worked with in their long-running musical theatre/burlesque troupe. They were known as the Mystic Knights of Oingo Boingo, and this movie kind of brings together everything they'd been doing in their live shows to that point. By the time it was released, Richard had left to pursue other film work, and Danny, along with some of the other Mystic Knights, was leading the project as the newly reformed Oingo Boingo. That band went on to record 8 studio albums and was active until 1995, when Danny decided to retire it and focus solely on composing for screen. Forbidden Zone actually marks Danny Elfman's true debut as a film composer, released a full 5 years before Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The soundtrack is a broad mix featuring licensed music and original recordings of songs written or adapted for the story. Danny receives an original music and arranging credit, with the performance being attributed to the shortened Oingo Boingo. And big fans of Elfman's work will hear distinct similarities with their early albums. I can't play much of these, but listen to this short clip of the track Grand Finale that features in Forbidden Zone. Now listen to a few seconds of Nasty Habits, the last track on Oingo Boingo's debut album. And just for fun, a clip of the Simpsons theme tune. What you're hearing here are the musical fingerprints not only of Danny Elfman, but of Steve Bartek as well, the guitarist from Oingo Boingo and Elfman's go-to collaborator and orchestrator. Fingerprints that are all over the Nightmare soundtrack as well. They went on to work on countless projects together, including most Tim Burton releases, Men in Black, and of course the Simpsons movie. With all this in mind, we have to reopen the file on Oogie Boogie. I received a lot of really thoughtful feedback and discussion on the character episode with regards to Oogie Boogie's portrayal and signifiers. You know, his song being directly inspired by Cab Calloway's Minnie the Moocher routine and owing a lot to Black American culture. But I didn't have the whole picture, and Forbidden Zone showed me that this one little section of the movie has so much more history than I had anticipated. One of the best musical numbers in Forbidden Zone involves Danny Elfman himself, Oingo Boingo's band leader and future composer-songwriter for Nightmare, dressed up as the devil in a slick white suit, performing a rendition of Cab Calloway's Minnie the Moocher.
Hidey, hidey, hide. Hidey, hidey, hide. Hoody, hoody, ho. Hoody, hoody, ho.
This scene right here is the missing link. I think everything I said in that episode stands and is worth considering, but now we have this additional piece of the puzzle that adds to its history. And I think it shows that Oogie Boogie's character has less to do with Tim Burton and everything to do with Danny Elfman and his love for this specific song. Perhaps Oogie is simply a stand-in for Elfman's devil in a scene that has just been recycled from this long-lost project he made in his 20s. We go from Squeeze It, the Princess, and Satan, to Jack, Sally, and Mr. Oogie Boogie. On a separate note, I think this should further empower anybody looking to perform a queer reading of Nightmare Before Christmas, because this is a direct connection to the traditions of drag and burlesque in what is arguably a precursor to modern queer cinema. One of my favorite things in media is noticing the career-long fascinations of particular creatives. How directors will return again and again to similar themes, how writers will find ways to explore the same kind of character or situation from different angles. This project has been particularly generous on that front because Tim Burton is fairly obvious about his own creative obsessions. But it turns out Nightmare also exposes another creative obsession: Danny Elfman's career-long love of Cab Calloway, and a specific performance he just can't help but return to, referencing and remixing it again and again. Which is how, as unlikely and perhaps uncomfortable as it may be, The Nightmare Before Christmas winds up with even more fascinating creative lineage. Because buried deep inside this beloved children's classic is an undeniable piece of this horny, proto-queer cinematic history. And I don't think Disney knew that when they signed the checks. Thank you for enjoying this episode of This Is Halloween. Just a quick note on the running order. As you notice, we've kind of decided to rearrange a couple of things. The next episode will be the last one in the main series, a kind of roundup episode where we talk about trivia and respond to comments. And we're still planning to do a big overview of all of Tim Burton's films, but we decided to push it to the new year because, we want to do a good job.